Phil Martelli Jr. is to Phil Martelli Sr. as Richard Pitino is to a sobbing, whiny little bitch. However you square the circle, nothing hits quite like beating fathers and sons. You're listening to Can't Read, Can't Write. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Can't Read, Can't Write, the podcast that proves Spartans can talk. I'm Mike Jones, joined as always by the guy who misses Utah, Kevin Greck, and the dude who misses Pat Driscoll, Alex Plum.
I think it to be introduced as the guy that's not sure that Plum's not referring to Richard Pitino's daughter with the cold open still, even after we discussed it.
Even after we discussed it, we should be. There's a footnote.
There's a crying
here.
child on TV. You write that. But you insist.
This is damage
Explain
control.
Explain it to the listening audience.
People know that I'm not talking about a 7-year-old girl.
I don't think anyone listening isn't certain.
Yeah, so
they should be. Let me disabuse them. I'm not talking about this poor young girl who clearly cannot be castigated on a podcast by 3 absolute imbeciles. No, this is a dig at the fact that Richard, like his father Ricky Rick, are both insufferable whiners who complain more than any other coach in the NCAA, hands down, not to be trifled with. And at least when Rick does it, I think maybe it's the Botox that makes his face a little less expressive. Richard, though, unattractive. And he was really hounding the refs. And, as a Pat Driscoll apologist, I got to say, highly offensive. So that's all. Just a dig at those two, not at the poor.
Yeah, well, when you said, if you're not watching on YouTube, Plum was winking when he said we wouldn't ever attack a 7-year-old girl. So,
untrue.
So we saw her on TV while she was crying, which I was like, why are the producers choosing to do this?
Why would they do that?
But the first time we saw her, it was towards a tense part of the end of the game when they went to Rick Pitino, and she leans in from out of frame to sort of grab him.
A hug. Yeah.
And he looks over his shoulder and does not react. Does not comfort, does not do anything.
It was like, you're there.
He's recoiling at human contact from his granddaughter. It's like, that's the truest Rick Pitino perhaps we have ever seen.
And to be clear, that was the only video grab I had of this young girl. I did not know that there was a subsequent.
Because you were so busy celebrating after the game.
Do you think her name is Rickia? What do they call her? Is it Regina? This is
China.
That's awful. Regina was much better, closer to, I think, to probably the truth.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Rich
Jonesy, what did you do in celebration of the game? Plum and I, we're talking about what we were up to after advancing to the Sweet 16. What did you do with your evening last night?
Well, I chatted with you gentlemen and then said, gotta go. Joining Matt Sheehan on Locked On Spartans.
Oh, man. Now, is that an episode? Yeah, that's it. You do it. You got it.
Are we going to be able to see that episode, or is Papa Locked On going to bring the hammer down on that one as well?
Big sad again.
I asked Matt about this. He's like, "What? He's like, it's there." And I see no hour-long episode available on the Locked On Spartans channel. So
it sounds very Department of Government Efficiency. No, it's fine. It's there. You just have to find it.
Yeah. So Matthew, you'll have to come back on this podcast for 3 full hours to make up for deleting that content and not allowing us to clip my bold prediction that came to fruition. But it was a good time, as always, with Matt. And so
go check it out.
Yeah.
Here.
Also, dear listener, in case you're a longtime listener, forewarning, this is a Scotch episode. So the 3 of us
are
having Scotch.
What do you got over there celebrating with?
Gentlemen, drinking a bit of the Oban 14 year.
Do that more.
Yeah. And Jonesy?
I'm having the I'm finishing off my Offerman Edition Lagavulin 11. This is last year's, or I guess 2 years ago now, because it's the charred oak cask. Which is different than the Caribbean rum cask of this most recent vintage, which I'm honestly not a huge fan of.
You can get a lot of Caribbean cask scotches, but charred oak.
The Balvenie.
Yeah.
That was the first one I ever had. Was the Balvenie Caribbean cask.
My favorite one is still the first Lagavulin Offerman that they did that had the Guinness casks. That was fantastic.
Yeah. And over here, we'll be having the Kirkland Signature Isla Single Malt Scotch.
And I bet it's fantastic. I bet it's
is.
peatier than an actual bag of dirt.
It's a true ball knower Scotch and like a true degenerates Scotch. If you've got someone at Costco to
Which
get
Greg
you
does.
This bottle when it comes in the back, maybe you have a Scotch problem a little bit.
That's nice.
But it smells incredible.
But it works. Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
Well, the real Cuddy Sark of Costco, this guy. That's lovely.
Well, let's start getting into it. But of course, we want to thank everyone for listening. And if we could ask a small favor, please share the pod with Spartans in your life. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_pod and on Blue Sky at SpartanPod. What are we doing this week, Alexander?
Gentlemen, we will go behind the green wall where basketball always leads. And I promise, folks, once we've won the Natty, we will dive fully into football. There's a godforsaken amount of things happening, not happening. But for now, we've got a huge celebration. Yeah, we made it through the first weekend, and we are in the dance of dances. So we'll talk about Bryant. We'll talk about New Mexico. We will predict Ole Miss. Nothing more racist or wife-beaty than Ole Miss. Then we'll talk about women's basketball, but not more than that for too long before celebrating hockey. And then we might go off Grand River for just a sec before taking your social media queries.
All right, let's head behind the green wall, and let's start with that first game. Our Spartans take on the Bryant Bears.
Who cares?
Bulldogs. Bulldogs. And best them 87-62 in a game that MSU was only up 5 at the half. It was, and I think we chatted at halftime, and we all kind of agreed we'd almost have rather been down 5 than it. Bryant, I liked that team by way of mid-majors. They were a fun team to watch. Phil Martelli Jr., great coach, had his guys playing hard, but ultimately, I think this one really spoke to the depth. Just crushed them. At the end, the Bryant, did they have any turnovers? No, they had no turnovers in the first half. And then
7 in the second.
Yeah, 7 in the second. And then let me just confirm here. I think the rebounding was relatively even between the halves. Oh, they don't have the split up. But and then the second half, MSU just crushed them on the boards.
Yep. Well, I mean, let's talk about it. Game overall, they were 29 offensive and defensive rebounds to our, wait for it, 54. That is an egregious difference, and one that will come into play as we talk about New Mexico.
Almost all of that difference was in the second half. There were times, I remember one sequence where we got like 4 attempts at a 3-point shot in a row. It was like brick, and then finally Trey Holloman makes it. Like, just absolutely ground them down and got those second chance opportunities in the second half, and that lead just ballooned until we ultimately covered the spread.
Yeah. It was and I want to kind of circle back to this point though. I think the first 4 possessions we were 0-4, and it was just a real bad start. I know we talked about the size that Bryant had. That was real. I mean, in the wings and guards, they're a big team. Another game where free throws, we're really being buoyed by some earlier in the season performances, because this is, I think, now a real trend going in the wrong direction.
It's about 75% in this game. The next game it gets worse, but
Much worse.
Yeah, not good. This was also a game, the guys that we need to show up. We'll talk about this when we get to the Lobos, but Jay Nakins, good on defense, and that's hard to quantify. You don't see that in the box score, but on offense, rough. Not very good. 2 for 10 shooting from 3. Missed a lot of threes in the first half. Really just like a full shooting regression happened in the first half. This was a Trey game. Trey and Cohen Carr. A lot of bench points, a lot of zip coming from the reserves. I mean, ultimately we won this game and we beat the spread. And I think I saw that it was our biggest margin of victory in an NCAA tournament game since like 2001 or something like that. But
yes,
you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it.
Wouldn't have known it from the first half. That is for sure.
Let's talk about Cohen Carr, though, because, I mean, he was really spectacular.
Hell of a game.
The energy, I mean, the kid was 1 board away from a double-double on this night, had 18 points, leading scorer in this game. He just was electric. And, you know, when he gets going, the energy on his face, his body language, and he's a machine. I mean, the way because for every, like, amazing dunk, every maybe 6 of those, you get one where it's like, oopsies. And his body comes down in some awful contorted upside down position where he just lands on his neck in like a very unusual angle, and then gets up and just runs back on defense. So I don't know what that is other than terrifying, but God bless him. He is and has been an absolute joy to watch so far in this tournament. In fact, he was the only one that gave me any solace yesterday, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. And Cohen Carr, the cool thing about this season is that every game and it's not just dunks now, but that he continues to do things that you're like, oh, I haven't seen that before. You know, he had moments in that Bryant game. I think he had another reverse sort of layup jam thing that you're like, you spun in the air to field that ball and put it down. Just and hit his free throws, by the way. Just I don't know. Carr was every bit the difference in that first half in particular for MSU. Jace with a quiet first half in this game, but became an absolute bucket in the second one. Ending with, what did he end with?
15 points.
15 points,
yep.
3 boards, 2 assists. As an aside, as we talk through stats, I will just say, if Breslin has a rep of the scorekeeper being happy-go-lucky with handing out assists, whoever was keeping the score in Cleveland is the most chaste motherfucker I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, Fears, I think, we'll get to New Mexico, but I think was only credited with 2 assists in that game, and you got to be kidding me. So just as we go through sort of stat lines, I just want to call that out, that I think the scorekeeping was kind of bad down in Cleveland. So
as long as we're talking about this game, can I shout out Earl Timberlake in this game for Bryant? Man's head exploded in the first half. Bro.
In the most disgusting thing I've seen since Idang Ibak lost his elbow.
Like, he takes, I don't know how, like, some freak bow to the face, and next thing I know, it's just horror film.
Real
free throws, and he's bleeding through his sutures or whatever they've got going on. And then he comes back in the second half. He's got like the full, you know, like they just wrapped him. My brain thought of all of the incredibly abhorrent, that, you know, different directions I could have gone with that, but we stuck with just rap. So that's good. Yep,
My
we're
God.
good. But he played a fantastic game, came back, seems like a guy that I know that he bounced around a lot, spent a few years at Bryant. His career is over in basketball, but I liked him. Wouldn't have mind seeing him around a little bit more. And I hope he's happy with his career. But Warrior guy.
That's kind of how I felt about the Bryant team. I mean, I know we blew them out, but they felt like fighters. And
Yeah.
I mean, credit where credit's due, right? That's a good, fun team, and it's also, as an aside, Bryant, historically speaking, was just sort of known as this sort of small marketing business school. And they've leaned into basketball as their front porch as they sort of expand the offerings of that university. And so it's kind of cool. I think this is what their second or third year in D1. And they're already crushing their league. Obviously, Phil Martelli Jr. you can do worse by way of hires. And so, I don't know, wishing good things for that program. I got to wonder how long he's sticking around there. Same conversation we'll probably have about the next coach. But anyway, I think the other thing we got to talk about here is who
Nick Sanders
play?
Scoring at the end of the game. Nick Sanders, 1 for 1.
Just glorious.
Yep.
Glorious. What a beautiful plus minus. And a beautiful beats per minute. Golly.
Our
powerful.
Our dear friend Xavier Booker was as close to a DNP coach's decision as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
He went in with Nick Sanders. So this is now a 9-man rotation.
Yeah, our famed 10-man rotation is no longer a 10-man rotation.
Yeah. And so I don't know. Zapala was also a DNP in the second half.
But that changed. Unlike with Book, that changed in the subsequent game.
Carr also, maybe this is we can move the New Mexico game if you want, but started the second half in both games, which I think was telling. And I believe in New Mexico, Carr was out there during winning time, as in like you might need to shoot free throws time, which I mean, dude shot 40% from the line in non-conference play. Like, I think this is why I love Cohen Carr so much, is that if you were that athletically talented, just, I mean, insanely gifted, the ability to say, I don't need to do that. Like, I don't need to worry about, like, have you seen me jump? Right. And for him to in season work so hard on something and clearly care. You don't get good at shooting free throws without putting the shots up. Like,
and also not to push things that he's not asked to do quite yet.
Right.
Like, he does attempt threes occasionally, but he's not out there forcing it. He's playing within his role, and that role is expanding at a rate that, like, is fitting to the obvious amount of work that he's putting into his game. Sorry, Plum, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to go back to Akins for a second because you talked about his defensive prowess, but I wanted to ask, because the plus minus here with Torvik does not seem to bear that out as much.
Are we on Bryant still, or are we?
I'm still on Bryant, but we can go. It doesn't really matter. Akins had such an egg both days that it doesn't. We can go that way. I mean, he's been.
I don't understand Torvik's box plus minus. By the way, how do you have fractional box plus minus?
That's you don't. He tries to do it for the amount of time that you spend in the game, and then he tries to extrapolate it. So you don't want to. I don't use it. Use the net for that.
All right.
Or use the box minus from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
All right. Very good.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. That's a good. You're calling. It's a good call out, Plum. I'm not sure. I feel like the raw number is probably different than that.
Okay.
But
noted. Well, let's go to New Mexico because the Lobos gave us something to talk about, in the words of the illustrious Bonnie Raitt.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, something that at halftime, I was talking about how I was a scared little boy with my tail between my legs.
you said you diddled your pants?
I did. Now that
Yucky.
now that Fran McCaffrey is out of the job, someone else needs to do some pants diddling, and I thought maybe I could pick up, the slack on that. But
you really pfeiffered yourself.
I really pfeiffered myself. I was scared at halftime. I think I said out loud that this was like a 50-50 game.
Yep.
Really, in my head, I probably thought that it was 60-40, but I was hedging 60-40 for us. But it was, they seemed to be in control of it at times. They seemed to, they weren't running their action. They didn't score for the last 7 minutes of the first half, but it
didn't feel like that, though.
They were really disrupting what we wanted to do, and it seemed like it could go either way. And then in the second half, the first 5 minutes kind of go back and forth, but then we just sort of impose our will
right away.
The game is the game. But they played hard, man.
That was the point I wanted to make here, because there's not a lot dissimilar when you look at the aggregate scoring here. They were just better than 50% from two. We were just worse, I think, or just barely. We were worse than they were anyway. They were 4 for 13 on 3 points. We were 4 for 15. The differentiator, and I think to your point here, apart from the boards, and we'll get to those, and assists, and maybe not quite as bad as turnovers, is the free throws. New Mexico had absolutely zero fucking ability to modulate. And I don't know that, I'm sure that someone will point this out, but this has got to be about as lopsided of a foul situation and trips to the charity stripe of any NCAA game.
They're a very high fouling team.
Might have made that point. He's a whiny bitch. When I say it, it's just factual. But it is true. Listen, one has to assume that he got some advice from his dad, which is play physical. You're going to have to play physical, and they're going to play physical right back at you. And I don't think that we didn't play physical, but we certainly weren't as reckless as they were, because some of those reaches, just some of the play, it was just insane. But no, they were 50% from the charity stripe, 5 for 10. We were 19 for 28. And while 19 for 28 has got to be one of the most dismal percentages, having the opportunity to shoot 28 free throws is insane. Because if we'd hit anywhere near how we normally do, 75, 80%, 85% of those, we're talking about 20 points, free money, which would have been a victory by another, fucking.
And what you're not seeing in the box score is the missed front ends on one-on-ones. Like that 28 could have gone higher.
Well, even higher. That's right.
They are one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. They foul a lot, but interestingly, they are the number 2 free throw defense team in the country, which is obviously not a real stat because you cannot defend a free throw. But for whatever reason, in the aggregate of a season, teams shoot terrible against New Mexico. So
there's a hex. They've got a hex.
Well, I will say one other thing. Talking about the second half, I'm loath to credit Lil Dicky with any amount of good coaching, but I think it ended up biting him at the end, but called some very timely timeouts. MSU would get up by 5. Had gone on
a little run is all it took, and you'd be like,
and you know what? Usually his team brought it back. right? And then it happened again, and I thought there were pretty strategic uses of timeouts. I got to give him credit for that. I think though, Greg, I came up with this bit on Locked On Spartans.
You did.
Yeah. I think the story of this game was a real Freaky Friday situation. I came up with this. And that Franklin Fiddler clearly had a body swap moment with Jace Richardson. Because
all the production that we were expecting to get from Jace comes through in Franklin Fiddler. And then Jace is out there giving us a classic Frankie Fiddler performance for most of the game.
Borderline Xavier Booker performance at times. Yeah. Actually, no, that's not fair because he defended and he rebounded and he passed and he did those things. But
so there's a body swap that we saw. Yep. But of course, we all know from watching Freaky Friday that they do have to swap back. Jonesy, in your bit, did you think that there was a specific moment that maybe there was a switch back? And maybe we could see that in the game.
And you can. It was when our boy Jace got to the line after going over. I mean, airballing 3-pointers. This is easily his worst game ever. But Jace, classic form, needs to see one go through the hoop to body swap back.
He sees 3 go through the hoop. In fact,
indeed,
sure did.
And if it hadn't been a 3. The Freaky Friday magic doesn't happen.
Yep.
But it was a 3, hits all 3, body swap back. Later on, Franklin airballs on something that Jace rebounds the airball and gets a putback for an and one. And our dear Franklin then goes on to miss our 90% free throw shooting. Franklin misses 2 free throws in winning time. It's a classic Freaky Friday that I came up with this bit. I thought it was very clever. It's one of the few movies that Matt Sheehan has actually seen. So anyway, yes. I think that's the story. I mean, that's the story of this game, though, is that, Akins kept us afloat in that game.
Yeah.
You're
right.
There was a clear will to... Akins was not done playing. Like a real senior moment of I'm not through here.
So I think there was a moment where he had a defensive stop or a block or a steal or something. And then we advance the ball and it's the end of the shot clock. And he sees that it's the end of the shot clock, squares up and drains a 3. That's the first time that has happened for him all season.
Yep.
He had 2 dunks in this game, right?
Yep. Every other game this season, that 3 misses entirely or clangs off the back. I mean, he was possessed. He would not be denied in this game. And we got to talk about I want to call him Donnie Dent. He was primarily on Donovan Dent, but we rotated bodies on him. But
Mountain West Player of the Year, Conference Player of the Year. Absolutely shut down in this game. Held to and he got 14
points.
but super inefficient. And he'd scored 20 in his last 7 games or something? 20 plus.
Yep. I mean, he's 7 for 18 from 2. He's 3 for 9 at the rim. Just took him out of this game. And he's a
40% 3-point shooter, by the way, who normally gets up at least 2 a game.
Didn't get 0 up in this game. The other thing that happened on their personnel was Nelly Joseph fouling out and not really being a factor in the second half.
Nelly Jr. Joseph. Let's get the name right.
Oh, pardon me. Nelly. NJJ. That hurt him. Those 2 things, I think, are the tale of the second half. Yeah, Dent being shut down and Joseph not being a factor.
Dent ends with also 6 assists to 4 turnovers, though notably that should have been 5 and 5. I don't know how the refs fucked that up, by the way. We had 2 clearly Make-A-Wish crews on this weekend because His foot was out of bounds on a pass for a 3-point shot that so they got 3 points and Dent ends with a slightly better stat line.
And Plum, is there anything that we want to talk about with basketball officiating? Is there anyone that's supposed to be looking at that out of bounds line or anything like that? Mm-hmm.
Is that someone's job? Can we talk about court design though? In fairness,
is there a line official?
But have you noticed that the line there's like multiple weird lines on the baseline in Cleveland? Like it's near the checkered whatever. It's a shit court design. I should have called it.
They should have, and it can't be that hard. Can't be that
hard. The last thing we got to talk about, I don't know if this is the last thing, but Trey Holloman, dog in this game as well.
Yeah.
In the first half, when we needed him the most, dog this game.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that we gave Franklin enough love, actually, though.
Really?
Well, we had the bit, that I came up with, but if Akins kept us afloat, Franklin was the thing that won the game. You needed a difference maker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ends the game with
just 10 points.
What? 10 points, but
10 points.
10 points in 18 minutes, 1 assist, only 1 board. What is up? A block and a huge block at one point in time in this game. I don't know. Franklin to me was the
contextual reality of where we were. I mean, this was a close game. We had been battling in the second half. We were only up by a few. It was one of those situations where anything could happen, and they had started to get a little flat. At one point, I texted you, Jaden Akins needs to die, because although, we have the sum totality of his wonderful performance in this game, at the one moment that I decided to pay close attention, he didn't do exactly what I wanted, and therefore I was quite upset. And lo and behold, here comes Frankie Fiddler that says, zippity doo-dah, hold my beer, I shall make all things well and good. Indeed, he did. So, you can have, and 10 points is actually
for role players, you needed to step up, right?
And he's a transfer. So this is why he's here. He's got to contribute off the bench. And he did. In a clutch moment in the game where we just needed to be able to trust on a third guy. So, again, context matters, and I think that's your point about him shutting down Harvey Dent's kid. So lovely, gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Yeah, Trey, 14 points, 4 assists, 3 steals, absolute menace. Cohen Carr,
and a massive block from the weak side on that one time where he just kind of comes up and just appears underneath the hoop. That was huge and at a very opportune time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Carr ends with 8.6 boards. Notably, a name that we've not called out in these two games, Jackson Kohler. Jackson struggled in this one early on. Amzil, he was guarding a much more athletic 4 than he is, and got just blown by, I think, on a handful of possessions.
Izzo talked about this in the post-game scrum, and I don't think he had the language for it, but when describing Jackson Kohler, I think what he wanted to say was Jackson got a little spazzy in the first half of this game. He got a little flustered. He got a little overexcited. It was just a bit too much, and he needed to spend some time. He needed a weighted blanket. He needed to calm down a little bit, and he contributed in the second half. But
he had a nice score from the block.
The moment got to him, I think, a little bit in the first half. Yeah,
it tried to throw some big boy britches on, and sometimes you just need to let those slide on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That's also part of learning, and hopefully that pays dividends in the Sweet 16, which we're now going to.
Sure.
The another DNP for our boy Book. This was the most minutes I think we've seen out of Zapawa in a little while, who ends with 4 points and 5 boards, 1 turnover, 1 block. I thought it was interesting that the staff, Junior Joseph, they clearly holding Dent in check. Let me say it this way: holding Dent in check while we were doubling down on a big was pretty impressive. Now, Junior Joseph ended up cooking in this game. That dude could play at state for sure. He was electric in this game, and it felt like he could score literally any time that he wanted to, which is a real problem for a team that can't trade threes for twos. So I don't know. Pitino got outcoached, I think, on this one.
As to be expected. Should we talk about? Do you want to talk about the next game now, or do you want to hold that?
Let's do it.
So MSU, it moves on to the Sweet 16. We're going to be down in the Hotlanta, which Izzo also said. He said Hotlanta in his post-game press briefing, and it made me think maybe I should stop saying Hotlanta, which I might do.
Did you also see that he was insisting Cohen Carr pay for food while they were down there? Which Cohen Carr was like, yeah, okay, and then rolled his eyes pretty heavy at like I may get paid, but you get paid more, buddy. Like
So we will be taking on the Ole Miss Rebels. And coach of the Ole Miss Rebels, does anyone have that information in front of them? Probably no one of any note or merit.
I don't know his name, but I know that he looks like someone that would abuse his partner. So that
I think actually, if I recall correctly, he's a big choke job. Yeah, that's right. Google Chris Beard choke job and see what pops up. But yes, it's Chris Beard.
Oh, we've run across him before, I believe. We've seen him.
We had some thoughts about him.
It smelled like tortillas last time we met Chris Beard, but now it smells like deep racism. That is the history of Ole Miss as an institution. The only institution, is it better? Like if your institution is kind of literally founded on racism and upheld the values of racism up until like unbelievably recently, like nearly our living memory, like getting
and can
close.
You say that they stopped holding those values, by the way? Can we really say that?
Yes, good point. Only that institution could look at Chris Beard and be like, let's give him a shot, huh? Wow, what do we have to lose? Basically, at this point.
I just want to remind everybody, and it gets lost sometimes. I think it's just important to note this, that Ole Miss, the state, as it were, and therefore its flagship university, didn't actually ratify the 13th Amendment and therefore agree to the abolition of slavery until 30 years ago. Yeah, that's right. Yep. 1995. So I just think it's important to put this in the context of the fact that while we were all alive, they were very proudly still clinging to that peculiar institution of the South.
You wait that long, why do it then?
Yeah. Why even do it? Look. Why not just lean in? Lean in. Come on, Cheryl. Lean all the way in.
In this climate, I think the lessons learned is you should have just leaned in. Just deny.
So not good. Not good at all.
So here's when you're in the Sweet 16, you're playing good teams. But our friends, no, we're not going to say that. Our opponents, the Ole Miss Rebels, we're looking at KenPom 21. To put that in context, MSU is up to KenPom number 7. They are offense number 24. They are defense number 21. To put that in context, we are offense number 25. We are defense number 5. So Ole Miss, they are just true garbage on the boards, like awful. And I have seen in a couple places that like maybe that's a strategic thing. They mean to get back. They want to disrupt the offensive flow, but it extends to the offensive boards. They're we're going to get second chance opportunities. They're bad on both the defensive and offensive boards. They're also not particularly great at shooting the three ball or defending it. And they never get any blocks. They're a relatively small team of dudes. But they are, and this is wild. So if you look down the amount of guys in their rotation that actually play, if we go by minutes percentage, I'm just going to rattle off their year in school. Okay. Senior, junior, senior, freshman, where the freshman plays 7 minutes a game. This is
he's getting more than Xavier Booker. That's an ouch.
Yeah. One of the oldest teams I have ever seen in my entire life. Like they say in the NCAA tournament, you want to get old fast. This team has accomplished that. Everyone on this roster is a senior, with the exception of Malik Dia, who's a junior. So these are guys that have been around it. These are like
men. This is a transfer portal team.
Yeah, this is a transfer portal team, and these are old dudes. These are like 23-year-olds that should be playing in Europe, but they're actually playing in the NCAA tournament. The good news is, I think kind of match up with that physically. I mean, if you think about who we've got on the team, we've got Akins. He's not going to be rattled by this. I trust. I mean, if you've been shot in the leg, are you going to be bothered by some senior guard coming at you? Probably not.
You'll probably talk a bunch of trash and maybe get teed up or get in a fight.
Yeah. Frankie Fiddler is not going to be scared of that. Like, it's a relatively small team, but it's a very old team. And it's a team that has gotten where it's at on defense. So you got to play good teams in the Sweet 16. But as far as matchups go, I don't hate this one. They don't shoot threes. They don't defend the three.
Well,
they do get back.
Yeah,
but
they had a great game against the Cyclones, though, and that's, I think, what I just wanted to point out. They went 11 from 19, which is fucking would be soul crushing if that were to be repeated. And the other strength they had against Iowa was 15 turnovers. Causing 15 turnovers and only coughing them at themselves. That's another great margin. So, I don't know if you want to look at Iowa State as some sort of bellwether here. I think we're a more physical team. I think we've got obviously a tremendous more depth, and we're all around just a better program than Iowa State. But still, from out of an SEC that's got 6-7 teams in the Sweet 16. I mean, I think they're the conference that has the most number. They've won their way into the Sweet 16. You got to say that they're doing pretty well, and this is a team that did, survive their own anyway in their conference play. So they're not anyone to sleep on. But as Sweet 16 matchups go, I agree with you, Kevin. I would choose playing Ole Miss 10 out of 10 times.
It's a great call out, Plum. They don't turn the ball over at all. They're third in the country. And they do turn you over quite a bit.
Those offensive rebounds are going to matter a lot because you've got to first of all, ball security, right? You need to protect the ball, but
which we can't do. We can't fucking do.
Let's assume, for the sake of argument, I mean, they tend to get better through the game at taking care of the ball, but
not how.
Let's assume that we're going to have an elevated turnover percentage in this game. That means you've got to get the offensive boards. You need to steal extra possessions. And so that's, take care of the ball, mitigate their strength, but you need to lean into yours and get those second chance points if you're gonna win this game. But I still, Iowa State, I think, was this. Obviously, they didn't win, but I think was probably the team you didn't want to see more than Ole Miss. And look, this is, again, a chance to redeem 2019 with beating Chris Beard. Again, you can find out about that if you just Google beating Chris Beard. And then we, have the opportunity to beat a coach that is a real piece of shit and doesn't deserve to coach young men. So fuck that guy, fuck that institution.
Also, forks down today, forks down tomorrow, forks down forever. But maybe some credit to Indiana and the other Big Ten teams who decided not to give him a call.
I mean, I don't know that.
I get it's what you're supposed to do, but still, athletic departments are under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of pressure to win.
Also, by the way, people who went to bat for Chris Beard, Richard Pitino. Rick Pitino. Richard, by association, is guilty. Sins of the father or something, right? Well, you're the Bible expert. That's how it works.
Yucky.
Which means his daughter's also that's not good.
Yep. Anyway, after that, you have either Auburn or potentially the most toxic Elite Eight game in NCAA tournament history. I don't know that the podcast or my beating heart can handle what would happen if we didn't play Auburn in the Elite Eight. Again, presuming that we get past Ole Miss here. But dear Lord.
Plum, as a man of the cloth, I have a question. I need you to weigh in on this.
All right.
Would it be fair to say that God is dead if we don't win against Chris Beard? How can there be a God?
Well, Michael, the ways of the Lord are confusing.
Fuck that. I don't want to hear that.
Confusing at best.
God's plan.
God's all in God's perfect plan. Just remember, it could be that God wants Chris Beard to win this game so that while driving to his next game, he gets hit by a semi-truck and murdered. So we don't know. We don't know what the
Could God
Lord
just
desires.
move up that plan a little bit, just adjust it forward?
No, because
Doesn't
if he
seem like
dies
too much
before
to
he
ask.
plays us, then they'll win on the principle of playing for their dead
Oh,
coach.
okay, yeah.
And we're gonna beat the fuck out of our wives too one day, man. Cool. Or whatever people say. I don't.
Whatever it is that people say.
It was noted you don't celebrate Women's History Month, so I appreciate that you don't understand that particular.
It has been noted indeed. Yep.
Look. Do you? I don't want. I don't want that Elite Eight matchup if we get there, for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think. I was talking about this with Matt Sheehan last night. Would you rather have the lower seeded team that you've already stomped twice this year?
Yes. Yeah, I think because
beating a team 3 times in a year is hard. They know you.
But yes, they do know us, but then we also fucking know them. And more to the point, the last time we saw them, they came to our house and disrespected us on our senior night. So I like to think that there'd be some things that have been unresolved. And not only that, but Michigan, feckless and useless as they are, is not going to be able to get over the fact that we've already beaten them twice. And they're going to think, it's going to happen again. So there's nothing better. I mean, honestly, this is a win-win for us. We don't have to play them again when Auburn beats them, which will happen, or we get to beat them a third fucking time. And it would have been 4 if we hadn't gotten accidentally hooped on by used car salesman and noted school playground avoider Greg Gard. So,
School playground avoider.
Indeed.
indeed. Just indeed.
The guy who yells too hard at the umpire.
All right. Well, talk to us about
Gard.
women's basketball.
Do we really want to spend a lot of time on this? Because they got absolutely housed today. by NC State. Just
2-seed NC
annihilated.
State. Yeah.
Didn't go great. As well as this team played against eventual one seeds, right?
Yeah, I mean,
UCLA and
against
USC.
top tier competition, USC, UCLA, they didn't have it today, and NC State did, and that's like, I don't know. I think end of season stuff. It's hard to like. What's the point in wallowing in it? And but it was. It's definitely not the way that you wanted to see the season end. Even if it had to go out this round, and the unfortunate thing is, last year when they exited, it was okay. You got stomped by SC. Like, I mean, that South Carolina team was just stupid good. But this, I do think it's fair to say that in women's hoops there hasn't quite been the I think the top it's very top heavy in terms of talent.
Yeah.
And so I suspect over time we'll continue to see more of an even distribution. But at the same time, like, I think you got to say, in year 2, Robin Fralick, I like where this is going. Like, and they
Trending in the
continue to
right
be a really fun watch, despite that today they just, I mean, that offense was stuck in the mud and they couldn't make anything.
Yep.
So I think, did they end with 47 points?
It was not good, whatever it was.
Yikes.
But there is spectacular news. Now that we're done with basketball, we can move on to ice hockey, where this weekend at Mun Ice Arena, the second Big Ten tournament championship game was hosted in as many years. And after 1.5 overtimes, your Michigan State Spartans emerged victorious in over Ohio State. Pardon me. We covered this.
Relevant.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. It is relevant. It comes back again. Look at you, podcast host. Look at you. And I don't know if you guys watched the game, but my God. So MSU goes up 3-1, big 2-0 early lead, goals by Dorwart and Howard, Isaac Howard, massive game. We'll come back to that. But Ohio State has a couple big scores. They got a dude on their team named Gunnar Wolf Fontaine. He pulls one in, and then unfortunately there's a bit of a putback, and then a little bit of a ricochet off of Trey's skate, goes in the net. They tie it up.
Talk that puck.
Yep, we're talking puck big time right now. So in the Big Ten tournament, it is 5-on-5 hockey for as many overtimes as it takes until someone wins. And this became the longest game in Big Ten tournament history, not just championship history, any tournament game. They went through one full overtime period and then half of another one. And it was a weird thing, because it felt like our team was kind of controlling the pace of the game, like a lot of time spent in the Ohio State zone. But it also felt like all of the best scoring opportunities would happen for Ohio State. So it absolutely felt like that game could end at any second. It was just like your heart is right there at the limit. But in the end, ultimately, great setup. And then Isaac Howard, who is your Big Ten Player of the Year and could be Hobie Baker Award winner, finds a way to put the puck in the net. And your Michigan State Spartans are two-time consecutive both regular season and tournament champions. That has never happened in the history of the Big Ten Hockey Conference. And they are going on to be the number 1 seed in Toledo this week, which I believe
Region of death.
I believe yours truly will be there on Thursday to see them take on Cornell. And then they'll be playing the winner of the aforementioned Ohio State Buckeyes team or Boston University. So very, very tough little region, but no reason why these can't be home games for your Michigan State Spartans. In fact, I do believe that I will be there in Toledo rooting them on. So a very exciting Big Ten tournament. The guys have won. I don't know if you're tracking this, but they've won everything that they can win all year. They've won the dual in the D. They won the GLI. They won both championships in the conference. They are just stacking up hardware right now and have an opportunity to go to the Frozen Four if they can get through just like a very tough winner go home bracket. So it's incredible what this program has done in 3 years. Absolutely incredible.
I got to complain about hockey though.
Good.
The idea that you have to play Ohio State again, potentially, is insane.
It's because the Big Ten is the strongest hockey conference this year. They're putting a lot of teams in.
Then let's go to the Frozen Four. Let's just Frozen Four.
They're not. Okay.
No. It like pass on all of this. It feels particularly in a one-game winner-take-all scenario, the idea that we have to play them again after having proved our mettle through an entire conference season.
I mean, it's what happened last year against a team that isn't in this year's tournament, by the way, that we beat them multiple times, and then finally they were able to
get team
us and go to the Frozen Four.
Got a storied history of winning Big Ten championships, right?
It must. I assume so. I assume that it must, because I keep being told that they're a hockey blue blood. Someone would presume that they have ever or frequently win their conference championship. But there's no way to know on that. I'll have to take their word for it.
There's just no way. All right, let's head off Grand River. Before we do, want to say a quick word. Listen, folks, if you've not checked out Mama's Mercantile and Eatery, I don't know what you're doing. If you're going to Toledo, if you're a Munster out there listening and you're on the bus, make the bus stop at Mama's Mercantile and Eatery.
Can you imagine what would happen at Mama's Mercantile if an actual bus stopped there?
Yeah.
I
would
take
love that so much.
7 hours to get through everyone. As someone that worked at a
My
Wendy's
parents
back
would
in the
be
day,
911 in there, and
yes,
100%.
yes.
my
As
mom
someone
was
that
waiting
worked at
tables and
Wendy's
was like,
back
"I
in
don't
the
care
day,
what you want."
I remember the cold sweat that happens when you see the bus pull into the parking lot. It is, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, much less a sit-down restaurant with amazing deals on Miller High Lifes for the kids.
You can get takeout, Kevin, and you can order online if you go to mamasmerc.com for menus and online ordering. But anyway, you should visit them at 4450 Clear Lake Road in Grass Lake, Michigan. If you have Google, you didn't need to hear me say that. But seriously, just check out Mama's Merc. You can find them at Mama's Merc on Instagram, I think. You mentioned Can't Read, Can't Write, and you get 10% off of your order. Truly, I can vouch. It's good food. Go. Check it out.
Whole bus gets 10% off.
Yeah. Whole bus.
Guys,
and there's a gas station next door. You can fill up your bus there.
You're going to have plenty of time to fill up the bus. Anything we want to talk about off Grand River? I already kind of brought up the other Big Ten basketball hires. Do we want to dwell on that?
There were some interesting ones. Iowa's still open, and there was a very odd answer from Drake's coach post NCAA tournament exit. Drake's coach is for sure going to Iowa.
Yeah.
Minnesota picked up.
No, as of 12 hours ago, that is confirmed. Yep.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Okay. And then Minnesota got who from where? It was an interesting hire.
I thought we were going to talk IU.
Well, IU's also interesting because that dude is not a press the flesh kind of guy. And
Nico Medved from Colorado State. Oh, the Colorado State coach already got hired? Wow.
Yeah.
Dude. I watched that game. That was a bummer. I felt bad for the Rams. Felt bad for Ram guy. Ram kid.
Yeah, and then Indiana's hire out of West Virginia, right?
Yep.
I don't know. That one feels sus.
I mean, he was at Drake before. Had a fairly good season at West Virginia. Must have aced the interview. It would not have been on my radar, but we'll see what Darian DeVries has for the Indiana Hoosiers, who are forks down today, forks down tomorrow, forks down forever.
Yeah. And then the other thing to chat about, I do think we should mention it, is it has finally come out what happened with Matt Weiss, the former offensive coordinator for the University of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Yahoo had the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
The TLDR,
he was finally indicted. Like we know what the charges are now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. TLDR is that he is disgusting, and I don't know that we need to belabor it. I will just say that I loathe the University of Michigan, but his level of disgustingness is not something that's actually representative of the institution. Like I think as I certainly Jim Harbaugh made a history of making bad coaching hires.
Yeah.
But that you can put you could put them all in a box and nothing rises to the level of what Matt Weiss is accused of having done. And so I do think it's worth refreshing, considering the broad brush that our institution was painted with in the wake of Larry Nassar, that if you're a U of M fan that's weirdly listening to this right now, I think you and your school are a piece of shit, but like it has nothing to do with Matt Weiss. Just saying that
the you and your school are a piece of shit was really that was special. That
is how I feel though. So I mean, some of you are tolerable enough to have a beer with, but like I still think you're a piece of shit. But anyway,
I do want to put in a plug though. We talk about the blue wall, whether it exists or not. I think it is irrefutable that the extent to which the blue wall does exist is the media's willingness to put everything in its own little silo. And Jonesy, I think you're being very generous right now by saying that this does not reflect the institution. And you're probably right.
Well, but no. Let me rephrase. It does not reflect the alumni and the people who. Yeah, that's
it does not reflect you as a fan. If you happen to root,
but it is easy to feel like the brush that is painted about the place that you come to love and identify with. Like I think we felt this. We lived this. The shame and the sense that somehow that my love of alma mater was something that was wrong,
right?
And Matt Weiss didn't abuse in the sense of the way that Larry Nassar did. There wasn't, but
Robert Anderson or whomever.
Yeah, but let's not pretend that it's not its own version of abuse. But I do want the alumni and the fans who may be listening to this, that I think you can and should hold your head high, knowing that I think you're a piece of shit. And it has nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Right. It was a terrible thing we lived through. Like, it was unfair and wrong, and the way that the whole of it got discarded. And so I don't know. Like, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and I do think that should be disposed of as a way of covering very complicated institutions that people identify with in a like. I mean, we do this shit every week because we love the place that we went to so much. So anyway, I'm being generous, maybe, but at the same time, like your school still has a statue of a guy who enabled abuse. So like maybe check that out too.
Yep.
No.
He did it.
No, he didn't.
Or no, do they have the statue or do they just have the building?
Oh, no,
the statue
they have
and the
both.
building.
They have both.
It's a yes and situation.
It's a fully
And they have
double down.
signed copies of Bo Knows all over the place, and it's required
Don't
reading.
care. They love it. They love it.
Yep.
It's
Do we want to say
freaking
more about this though? I mean, like, I think there's more to unpack here. But
No, there's not today. And you've done a well job, but they are sick fucks, and that's all we can really say. And that's why they'll lose to Auburn, and that's why don't care about his name anymore. But the Ole Miss man will hopefully, you know what would be good? We should put Chris Beard right into a cotton gin. That's what we should do. That's the most poetic way for him to go. Fully just gin him down. Just gin him all the way to fuck up.
From the rumors that I heard before he moved to Texas, he'd be down to be ginned down. Most of those rumors were about how ginned down he got all the time. Ginning and driving, ginning and yelling at
real
wait staff.
Bob Huggins disciple.
Yeah.
Oh, yuck. That was
all right.
Dupes.
Let's move on. Social media questions. Reach out to us. We've got the Blueskis. We got the Twitters. We've got Can't Read, Can't Write. Or
Can't Read, Can't Write, 1855@gmail.com.
How is Can't Read, Can't Write already taken? Who has that Gmail handle? What's wrong with you?
I think it's people supporting literacy.
Anyway.
No.
Let's take our social media questions. And they begin from Mr. Mike Jones. Why does our hockey team always make the Big Ten championship game so nerve-wracking?
Nope.
Yeah. It is true. I sat through last year's Big Ten championship game right next to Mike Jones. He and I have that trauma bond together. And I didn't have the heart to go to this one. That's definitely why I wasn't there, not because I wasn't invited. But yeah, it is wild. Yeah, clearly. But that should be of no surprise to anyone listening to this. Why can't we just win a Big Ten championship tournament game without an overtime? Why does it have to be like this?
Does that make you nervous about? Does that give you a sort of inferiority complex about the team?
I will say this is now 2 games in a row, the Notre Dame game and the Ohio State game, where I would say like the team controlled the puck, had it in the opponent's zone, spent a lot of time taking shots, but the quality shots tended to go more towards the opponent. And that does worry me a little bit. But fortunately, we've got a fantastic all-conference goaltender, and we've got a maybe Hobey Baker Award winner, certainly in contention for that. So, I mean, it's a tough region. Just have to go support the team and go win. Right. Next up from Mike Jones, how nice is it to play like your B or C game and still grind out a W versus New Mexico? Feels like the last couple of years, we'd probably lose that game by 10.
Yeah, I think this is, I mean, Jace might as well have put up an offer in this game. I mean, I know the 6 points was meaningful to the 9-point victory, but like someone else might have gotten those points. Mm-hmm. Is how he was playing. The free throw shooting was trash by comparison.
Piss poor. Season.
Yeah. So I think the thing is, this team stays locked in on what it being bad at offense has been battle tested this whole season, and they don't give up on their defense. And it's why we've not seen them ever be blown out. Mm. They've not ever really dropped a deuce this entire season. And so I think the worst of it was the first half against Oregon at home.
So won that game.
Right, but I'm just saying I think that's the worst they've ever performed defensively this entire season. So I think it is encouraging that if you see a C performance, and I think I'm not saying C effort. I'm just saying they were bad for stretches of that game. If you can see the execution be that bad, you can see an A performance coming that gives you a victory over somebody you didn't maybe see coming.
Expect.
So one of these days they're going to shoot the 3-ball well. One of these days we're going to get hot as shit.
Next up from Thomas Abiassi, Kevin, why is it so tough to advance in the women's tournament? Would love for Coach Freilich and the team to advance, but doesn't seem like they get the same breaks as similar seeds in the men's bracket would. Is that fair?
I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't really know the women's tournament as well. It's a great question, Thomas, and one that I wish I had the answer to. I think it goes maybe to the top heaviness that we see in women's college hoops that Jonesy, you referenced earlier. But
top heavy seems like a strange anatomical statement to make there. One that you
we're an ally podcast. I think the audience understands I didn't mean it that way, but I understand, and I'll be doing some introspection.
It's weird that Plum, the man who doesn't celebrate Women's History Month, is the one who went straight to boobs.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well,
it's interesting. He also doesn't celebrate, as we established, Black History Month. So we'll see where he goes straight to with that. Next up from
Jason,
Thomas,
by the way.
What was more surprising, Jace having such an off night, or Richard Pitino, his team playing that well?
That's got to be a surprise on Jace. Listen, a broken clock is right twice a day, and so it will go for someone that looks like Richard Pitino.
Yeah, I agree. We've not seen a performance like that.
We've not seen it. We've not seen it. So, and that's what I'm saying. I think more to the point on Mike Jones's question too. This is what I want. I want B or C performances. This team is comfortable winning with B and C performances. What we're incapable of doing and have been incapable of doing all season is stringing together a series of A performances. So what I need us to do is to continue in B or C our way into the Final Four. We're just two A's will do it. That's all. That's all we need. 2 A's, and we will be right there. So that's it. Next up, from Lobster Puncher. This is, I don't know who this is, and I love this. This is definitely the first time we've ever heard from them. All right, here we go. Michael, why even show up to Atlanta on Friday? We already have the Sweet 16 banner to hang, which, as we all know, is the universally agreed upon standard of program success, no matter how many tournaments you miss in between.
Lobster Puncher, I think U of M took down their Sweet 16 banner. Thank you very much. I don't think they celebrate that anymore.
Was that a Dusty May decision?
No, I think that happened years ago. I think that happened during the Beeline regime. But something that will never go away are the Indiana University Sweet 16 rings that were handed out to their basketball players.
No.
If they could add a little detail on the candy stripers, just to really sort of hammer that shame home would be great.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But I think this is, I think Lobster Puncher is really making the reference to the U of M fans being like, all that really matters is consecutive Sweet 16s when the moon is in its, whatever.
Yeah, because 3 out of the last 6 years, they've made it like big deal, bro.
Still, nothing will be as sad as the Purdue banner situation. That will only ever be.
Did you know that Ohio State has a banner for years they've made the tournament?
No, I did not know that.
Yes. That is a very real thing.
Well, this year isn't one of them. So.
Oops.
Next up is Ali. Where, Plum, in the backness metrics do we sit today compared to last week?
Backness metrics?
As in, how back are we?
We're back, baby. We're back. We're being and seeing our way to be back in black.
Back shots?
Back shots, doing back shots, doing back shit. That's for sure. Next up, for Kevin, who goes off this upcoming weekend?
Like a chiropractor?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's a family show, you two.
Who's going off, buddy? Come on. Who's going to do it?
I'm
Is
going
it
to see me. I think Cohen Carr keeps this momentum that he's on and continues his going offness. And in addition to that, I think we have a Jace Richardson redemption tour this weekend as well.
You heard it here first. Greg said Carr is getting off. Next
getting
up.
Off on the back shit. All right. That's great.
Ali. What gets referenced more next weekend on the broadcast? Fierce's gunshot wound or why Beard is at Ole Miss? I have to say,
choose your violence.
For as long as the broadcast was weird about what actually had happened to Jeremy Fears, they've now fully gone into it.
Yeah, the pendulum has just swung the other way entirely.
Yep. Survival of gunshot violence and perpetrator of gunshot violence go against each other in the NCAA Sweet 16. Oh,
it
my
would
God.
be really funny if they show the clip
the
of Chris Beard coming out of the prison and getting in the University of Texas athletics vehicle. And then they can be like, why does it say Texas on it? That's weird. This is Ole Miss. And then they can continue to talk about it.
Look, if you're a Spartan who's going down there and you feel inclined to make a sign, just saying, opportunities are in front of you.
Oh, my God. Maybe I have to go there.
I mean, think about all the flack that was given to Terrence. Was it Terrence Shannon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who ended up being acquitted of, or not acquitted, but, charges dropped. And seemingly convincingly so. But Chris Beard, wholly different situation. So he deserves all the shame in the world.
Okay. Next up from Nate C. Of the various Big Ten COVID players, which one are you happiest about the fact that they have to go get a real job? I'm leaning toward Dickinson because he's such a tool, but Chucky Hepburn was a pain as well. Might be an ex-MSU player. I'm just not that familiar with who transferred for the remaining eligibility. Dickinson is probably the king of this because his basketball career is not effectively over, but his marketability is about to plummet. What do you got there?
Joga is just through.
Oh my God.
All right.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
Oh, okay.
Check us out on YouTube. Smash that like button. Don't forget to follow.
Oh,
Yeesh.
wow. You did some Googling, my friend.
I really did.
For me, the ultimate one has already left. Boo Buie. Boo Buie is the ultimate COVID hanger-oner.
He's got to be playing somewhere, though, right?
No, he's done. He did his 5 years.
No. But he's playing somewhere.
Yeah, he's playing somewhere. But we're talking about
he's in the G
Big
League,
Ten that I no longer want to deal with that took all of their COVID time. Boo Buies for me.
Yeah.
Next up from Nate C. Monday's result aside, this weekend was pretty awesome. What were you more happy about? Sweet 16 or back-to-back Big Ten season and tournament championships?
What was I more happy about? What?
Did you
about basketball or hockey?
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry.
I was like, we didn't win the tournament.
We
It's the Sweet
look.
16.
It's basketball.
It's
like
the Sweet
I just
16.
I'm not going to pretend that I don't care more.
Yeah.
Right.
There's also the fact that the conference tournament is not the same as the actual tournament.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what? Here's the other thing, Nate, is that Alexander Brandy Plum,
Brandy,
who
how did you
is
know?
easily
It's actually Crystal.
In the hater levels of you, Nate C, called me after his watching the game in a sad, pathetic state in his hotel room in Houston. Not when I say the game, I don't mean our game. Alex Plum didn't watch so many Michigan State games, but watched the Florida game and called me to say we could win this thing. And so for me, it's making the Sweet 16 because Alexander Brandy Plum has said to me
two times
that we can win this thing. And so
it's a Brandy Alexander. Okay, the drink is a Brandy Alexander. That's first and second.
No, I'm sorry. That's when you comma your name.
Oh, beautiful. I will say I did watch more of the Florida game than I did the Michigan State New Mexico.
Oh, I didn't say that. I said you didn't watch other Michigan State games.
No, but
I
it's
didn't
still
need you
true.
to cop to this.
No, it's still true though. It's factually true. I was in a dinner, and I knew we were gonna fuck it up. My blood pressure. You know, my heart isn't strong enough to watch a full Michigan State basketball game. I could die at any minute. Absolutely not. No,
it's a hazard.
I like how you're victim blaming me here, like as if
hazard. I am, and I had to.
You know I can't do this.
Brandy. All right, next up from Brandy Marley, just Marley. Hi, Marley. I've seen a lot of disappointment about the lack of Cinderellas and mid-majors in the Sweet 16. Kevin, could this be attributed to 14 SEC teams getting into the tourney?
I think it could be a little bit contributed. Everyone's talking about how few conferences are represented in the tourney, but that there's just more teams in each one of these conferences now, except for the ACC, which only has Duke. But I don't think that entirely answers for the fact that there are no low seeds in the tourney anymore. Your tournament Cinderella for 2025 is Arkansas. John Calipari coached Arkansas. Maybe BYU, who we should probably be, if we're going to give this much guff to Ole Miss, we should probably give it to BYU as well.
Careful now. Careful.
It's tricky because I don't know if this is a blip, because last year we saw a lot of Cinderellas, but it does look like maybe this is the product of NIL and the product of consolidation with the Power 5 conferences in terms of talent. We're going to have to see next year, because there have been chalky, boring tournaments in the past. So before we kind of call it for once and for all that NIL has ruined Cinderella, I do want to get a bit of an expanded sample size. But I think we could have 14 SEC teams, Marley, to answer your question directly, and still have a Loyola Chicago. But
right, because those SEC teams lost.
Yeah,
the SEC did not. Well, a lot of them did. Right
the now, SEC half of the Sweet 16 is SEC teams. So
right, but if they had 14, right? I mean, the Big Ten in the first round went 8-0.
Yeah, but then how did they do in the second round?
4-4.
So way less good.
All right,
but they had 8 to 14, and I think so. You got a quarter of the Sweet 16 at this point in time.
So the SEC has something more resembling half. Anyway, I get the question.
Yeah.
Yep,
and it's well taken. All right, next up, Owen Southworth. If you were British, it would sound like Suffolk. Owen Southworth would be how they would say that, I think. At any rate,
what if he was drinking an Open 14? How would that sound?
I won't do it. I refuse to do it, and I will not debase myself again today. I've done it too many times. Owen asks, do you guys, that's plural, think that Imani Bates would have been as disappointing? Oh, this is a good question. Do you guys think that Imani Bates would have been as disappointing as Booker is right now had he ended up committing? And Owen, I don't know if he wrote this or someone else wrote this. You can follow Owen on TikTok at Owen Talks MSU. You should look him up. Owen Talks MSU. This may be our first Gen Z active engager who has a TikTok platform. TikTok seems very Gen Z to me, and I'm only assuming he's Gen Z because no offense, Owen, you look 12, and you have the broccoli haircut, which is all the rage among the Gen Z. Though I will say, I can't pull it off. I would go to prison if I tried to do that.
Particularly with the mustache.
I couldn't go anywhere. It'd be a Greg Gard situation for sure.
You have to keep this clean
out of my used car
to permit this.
I don't know. Benny Blanco's having a moment, so maybe you do okay.
Just saying, go check out Owen because Owen's got some good takes on TikTok and even better questions. Anyway, so what do you think, Imani Bates? Because God, Booker has been a disappointment. I don't know.
Imani Bates was on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, the hype is higher.
Yeah, they're not in the same.
All right.
Yeah, Imani was, and forever will be the largest disappointment in college hoops history.
Well,
like
okay,
it was the last
Max Christie and then Imani Bates for sure.
The last guy, the last high school kid on a cover of Sports Illustrated was LeBron.
Yeah. It is wild that more people went to go see Imani Bates play at the Eastern Convocation Center when he was in high school than when he played there as a college basketball player. Like they sold that place out when he was playing for Ypsilanti High School when he was Ypsilanti High School.
Let me ask this question. Whomstest amongst us? Who's to blame? Is it not Penny Hardaway's fault that Imani Bates is who Imani Bates is?
I would say it's his. Well, one, it's misaligned expectations, and then it's his family. Yeah.
But let's.
I'm still saying I'm not going to let Penny out. The absolute utter inability to provide any structural or cogent adulthood for these young men. Penny Hardaway should be put into a cannon right alongside Chris Beard and fired into the sun. Awful.
Yeah, they're
the whole
the same.
Memphis program. Awful. Well, I mean, really, at a certain point, you do have to call it like you see it.
Beat us.
But Greg, I think this might have been a conversation we had on the phone. I don't think we had this on the podcast because I think this is a nice little dovetail. Let us not forget that Jaden Akins played on that
Ipsy Prep team.
Ipsy Prep team.
And then was dismissed from that Ipsy Prep team.
Dismissed. And it became a real who do you want to have moment. And Izzo stuck by Akins.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I don't care that I don't care. Here. No, it is not. I do not care that Jaden Akins is not shooting the 3-ball well right now. There is a guy that represents this program well, and he's here right now. He is the guy that you want to have here right now.
100%.
He's the guy that you want to have take your kid out on a date. Like it is, you know what I'm saying? Like he's got 2 degrees at this point in time. Like I mean, my God,
yeah,
he is a excellent representative of the of Michigan State University.
Okay, that's fair.
And so I don't like. And Imani Bates nearly fucked that up. And so I guess shout out to Akins just for being an excellent Spartan and Tom for being like, nah, I know the guy. So anyway, Owen, great question. Again, what is it?
Owen Talks MSU on the talk.
On the talk, which is different than the cock. That's where you watch Big Ten games.
Yes. And Owen, if you had ever seen our demographic, our listener demographics, you would know there's no use in plugging your TikTok on our podcast, but we're happy to do it for you. But
listen, buddy, get your Gen Z bras to say that.
Owen, you bring people here and we'll feed them back to you.
There you go.
That's how it works. It's reciprocal.
Next up from Beppe Plum, taking extra classes that I don't need is stupid, but free college is free college. So can anyone give me a quick recap of the hoop season, explain the Richardson hype? I've seen 2.5 games,
Jesus.
both losses this year, and I've not been able to see his NBA future in those games. Okay.
What
Beppe,
the?
you're worse than I am.
Yeah,
That's
no,
really
seriously.
Hi,
He's
I've
doing-
taken the basketball season off. Please catch me up on Jace Richardson.
Really
All right,
leaning
here's the
into
thing.
Plum part of his name this week. Yikes.
First part of the season, Jace didn't start, shot super efficiently, was averaging maybe 12 points a game. Then injected into the starting lineup over the last 9 games of the Big Ten season.
Yeah, Jeremy Fears gets sick, flu hits the team, Jay starts, and we don't.
Then
look
Trey ends up taking the bench spot because Trey also an OKG, and Richardson goes to 17.9 points per game, and is now trending north of 30 minutes per game. And even in that turd of a game, was still in winning time a major influencer, distributed the ball incredibly well, rebounded. Like, Jace is the real deal. Now, should he stay? I love a negging game for someone's pro prospects in the tournament because I want Jace back. But dude is a pro, and the real worry is if we're going to run this back, you need an NBA player on your team. We have one.
Right.
So, next up from Beppe Plum, does anyone remember "That's Not Me, It's My Jacket"? Mulva spills. It was the best thread of early days RCMB or Spartan Mag. Jonesy, please grow the mullet. You know that's right. And then he has Gus from Psych clapping, and I just included that because Psych is my favorite TV show. So,
What the fuck does this? What does this mean?
I don't know.
Okay, I thought Greg, if anyone knew it, Greg was going to know it.
I'm the one that's the keeper of TRCMB on this podcast, and I am not familiar with this thread. That's not me; it's my jacket. So this predates us. It helps. It gives another piece in the puzzle of Beppe Plum. I think we know now age range of Beppe.
We can find this, right? We can way back this.
No, well, TRCMB has changed hands multiple times. I don't think
way back it.
This stuff is maybe.
If it's not a Javon Ringer joke, I'm not here for it. So
someday I will have to share my story of when I met. There was a TRCMB. What was his name? What was his handle? There was like a TRCMB personality that I hung out with unknowingly and on accident during one of the bowl games in Orlando. And Blanche, I didn't realize it until afterwards that I spent an evening protecting Alabama fans from Blanche. And I am not exaggerating. It was protecting Alabama fans from Blanche. Blanche 32, that I'll have to share that full story at some point. But he said one thing that was that tipped off who he was, and then I was able to confirm it later. And if you follow Blanche and you know this, you know exactly what it is that he said. So that's a story for the summer, and one almost worth telling. And now we're going to take.
Are you doing a Midtown Brewing read by Grant
I'm
Couch?
doing a Midtown Brewing read.
Am I getting a stroke? I don't know what's going on. 95%
all I
of
heard
whoever's listening doesn't know what the fuck is going on. I am out of my mind.
All I heard is that Greg in the early
1% of listeners know what is happening.
Early days of the internet, Greg doxed someone is all I heard out of that story.
No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened.
Then don't explain it.
Leave
Don't
it
explain
alone
it
this summer.
Good Christ.
If you
July
care
is going
about
to be
this,
a rough month for us.
If you care about this, ask me about it in the summer, and I will tell the story then.
Please.
Next up, Mamopoleaf. Talk about, oh my God, is this, can you get this from Close Contact? The BS number 1.
This is like a whole paragraph. This is a multi-parter.
It's her
cheating.
first dookie. Douglas Doty of the State News writes, quote, 3 keys for MSU's women's basketball to upset ... end quote. And these 3 following ideas, which would prove best for the men's basketball team to follow as well. Stay true to their identity, clean the glass, play at a controlled pace. It's clean the glass, right?
It's clean the glass.
Yeah, it's clean the glass.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, take all the rebounds that Ole Miss is going to give you and score off those opportunities.
Stay true to their identity is one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever heard in my entire life. And I've been
also, why'd you have to gender this, Mamapaleef?
That's true too.
Like, why are you trying to let the women have their thing and not make just? He wrote.
All right.
Yep.
From BS number 2 from old Suze. What is the highest rated in viewing men's college basketball game ever? And what matchup will it take to gain those ratings again?
Well, I presume she knows what this is if she's asking us. It's the MSU Indiana State 79 national championship game. Is the highest rated. Yeah, it's the highest rated college basketball game of all time.
Oh my God.
It's given credit for launching the NBA. Yeah.
It's Bird versus Magic.
Yeah. And the answer,
that's incredible.
Similar racial tensions,
which is interesting because they're from like neighboring Midwestern states, but
turns out not quite.
I think the racial tensions ratcheted up once it became LA versus Boston. I'm not sure that we can say that it was a racial tension thing.
Hey, things are perfect over here on the coast. I don't know what you're talking about. But I mean, well, there's a women's basketball parallel to this, by the way.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about it at the time, but there definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know that you're going to get something like that. There'd have to be truly 2 super teams, I think.
It's also our media is so fragmented now.
That's
part of this is it was the only thing that was on TV. You only had 4 options. Now
CBS carries the game and cable just goes out everywhere and everyone somehow gets a cable.
Rabbit ears come from nowhere. Yeah. That's
honestly,
the only chance.
It's one of the reasons that I think college football messes up their playoffs is they don't I think they still operate somewhat in this idea of like, we have the TV time slot, right? Whereas I think the NCAA tournament is, I mean, you see it across the number of channels that it's distributed through that people are opting into a game, right? Like they're selecting their content. So anyway.
Also, I got to give it to Delta Airlines for not having True TV available on its live TV options. Like I wanted to watch some games on True TV as I was flying home and I wasn't able to. So you'll be hearing about that in my next survey, Delta Airlines.
You should let them have it.
I encourage everyone to take their Delta Airlines surveys.
Also, Mamapaleef, that might have been your best question ever. So I just want to say kudos.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last up tonight, Raymond Chains back with us here. Michael, have you checked in on Matty Sissoko at all this season? Why was he able to blossom at Cal, but not under Izzo? As for Hogard, he's still on his way to the Albanian League.
Yeah. As far as ex-girlfriends go, I watched Hogard way more closely than Mady Sissoko, I'll be honest. And I think even in our can't read, can't write tournament bracket, my bracket is called the AJ Hogard Truther bracket because it has Vanderbilt getting bounced in round 1 and low. Vanderbilt was bounced in round 1 and low. AJ Hogard nowhere to be found at the end of that game in winning time. So,
but Mady did 8-8 this year and shot 70% from the line. Like,
could be worse.
You know, he had a nice season for Mady Sissoko, and you know what? If Mady Sissoko would stick around, maybe just maybe, he's playing in the second half in some of these games. I don't know.
More than
sometimes.
Booker.
sometimes people need to go do something new, and that's okay. Pierre Brooks,
Yeah.
doing well at Baylor.
Yeah.
Balling out.
No, Butler.
Butler. Sorry, not Baylor.
Baylor, Butler, same difference. No one cares.
Next up from Raymond Chains, and last up for today. I went to another basketball game, and once again, there was an oath of enlistment ceremony during halftime. Will any of you three take the pledge during this podcast, or will you round up random 18-year-olds to pledge themselves to Space Force right before advertising Mama's Mercantile?
Jesus fuck. Oh God! Can you even be gay in the military anymore? I think we're going back.
Space Force
to
has been
Stone
subcontracted to SpaceX, so I don't think it matters.
No, it doesn't matter.
So
Yeah,
they just blow things up over Texas waters.
Yeah, you're gonna die anyway, and whatever their spacecraft it is. So who cares?
And you don't get to enlist. You just get conscripted at 8 a.m. when some idiot 19-year-old runs the wrong SQL query. And then all of a sudden you and everyone else gets pulled into it. All of a sudden you're in the Space Force without understanding that.
And sometimes you bring in the editor of The Atlantic into a Signal group chat.
Unreal, by the way. Unreal.
I'm.
Why did he leave the group chat? Why?
What did he think?
Why would you not stay?
He probably didn't want to go to prison for espionage or something, because Christ knows they would have run that next.
You had enough to write an article for The Atlantic, and you didn't want to go to jail.
Fuck out. Yep. He was like, now I know I'm not supposed to be here. I got what I needed. Gotta get. Good for him.
I guarantee you a lawyer told him, leave that.
Get out.
Leave that thread.
Get.
I need to. If I'm pretty certain about this, as to who it was in that, he also hosted a panel with Bill Hader and John Mulaney and who's the Portlandia guy?
Armisen.
Fred Armisen.
And he wanted to talk very seriously, and they were like not interested in that. And it's a delightful panel to watch.
Is that one of the whatever
Documentary Now?
Oh, Documentary Now.
Well, it's press. Yes.
Those are great. Those were really good COVID watching fodder that I encourage everyone.
I cried laughing at,
even though you can go outside. Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, I think it's the same. Yeah, same journalist, and I'm like, you take yourself too seriously. Anyway, Plum, are there any affinity months that you want to shout out today before we exit? No, nothing. All right, go green.
Go on.
Go away.